You are about to discover the backwards law, the secret that striving blocks your blessings, while surrender unlocks them. As you listen, you'll see how letting go is the path to true power. The universe responds not to your demands, but to your allowing. The backwards law. Introduction. In the silence of forgotten ages, a traveler crossed a desert of endless gold. Upon his shoulders he bore two vessels, one flawless and whole, the other fractured, spilling drops upon the sand with every step. For years he cursed the broken vessel, striving to mend it, never seeing the unseen design at work. One dawn, as light poured across the dunes, he beheld a miracle, a ribbon of wildflowers, blooming only where the cracked vessel had spilled its gift. What he called weakness had birthed beauty. What he called flaw had been a secret blessing. So it is with the universe. Its truths are woven in paradox, whispering that surrender holds more power than striving. The river does not force its way to the sea, nor does the star strain to shine. It simply allows its nature to be. When you release the grasping, when you cease the endless effort, you return to the current that carries all things. The secret is not in holding tighter, but in letting go. This is the backwards law, the divine mystery that the less you struggle, the more life flows in your favor. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. Part 1. The Secret of Effortlessness. Chapter 1. The Gift of Letting Go. A young woman named Mabel lived each day as though perfection were a destination she could reach if she just tried hard enough. She scrutinized every detail of her life, her appearance, her work, her relationships, constantly seeking to polish away any trace of human imperfection. Each morning began with a rigorous routine of self-improvement. Each evening ended with a list of ways she had fallen short. Yet the more Mabel strived for flawlessness, the more flaws she discovered. The harder she worked to present an immaculate image to the world, the more exhausted and inadequate she felt inside. Her pursuit of perfection had become a prison of perpetual disappointment. The backwards law reveals itself in stories like Mabel's. When you chase perfection, you only heighten your awareness of imperfection. When you strain to appear flawless, you create tension that cracks your natural grace. The very act of trying to be perfect makes you feel more imperfect than ever. In contrast, there lived a man named Chester who spent his afternoons beneath an old sycamore tree. He had no grand plans for self-improvement, no rigid standards to meet. He simply sat in the dappled shade, watching leaves dance in the breeze, feeling the rough bark against his back. Chester never sought happiness. He merely allowed himself to be present with whatever each moment brought. Yet in this simple acceptance, in this gentle allowing, joy found him. Peace settled around his shoulders like a soft cloak. Without striving, without forcing, he discovered the contentment that had eluded Mabel despite all her efforts. The wisdom shines clear. What you chase often runs faster than you can pursue. What you accept tends to accept you in return. Your perfection lies not in endless polishing, but in embracing your natural state. The universe responds not to your striving, but to your allowing. Ancient practice. As each day draws to a close, take a quiet moment with paper and pen. Write down one thing you will no longer try to control, one area where you choose to release the grip of perfection. Then sit in stillness and breathe in the relief that follows. Feel how the very act of letting go creates space for grace to enter. Chapter 2. The River That Cannot Be Pushed. In a small village by the mountains lived Tommy, a gardener whose determination ran deeper than his wisdom. Each morning he would rise before dawn, armed with watering cans and an iron will. His garden became an obsession, watering 3 times daily, measuring the soil to the inch, following every rule he had ever learned about cultivation. Yet his flowers withered. The more precisely he timed his watering, the more his plants seemed to shrink away. The harder he worked, the less his garden thrived. His neighbors' gardens, tended with gentle attention rather than rigid control, burst with color while his remained stubbornly bare. One morning, exhausted from his ceaseless efforts, Tommy fell asleep beneath an old oak tree. When he awoke, he noticed wildflowers growing freely in patches he had never tended. Their beauty struck him. These untamed blooms that had never known his careful scheduling or measured care. In that moment, he understood. Life moves at its own pace, following rhythms far older than human schedules. Nature cannot be forced into bloom any more than the moon can be hurried across the sky. This truth echoes in the tale of Eloise, who lived by the sea. Unlike others who fought against the tides, trying to build walls and barriers, Eloise learned to watch the waves. She spent her evenings simply observing their eternal dance, neither resisting nor demanding. Soon her shoreline became known as the most beautiful stretch of coast. Shells and smooth stones appeared as if placed by an artist's hand. Rare birds nested nearby, and even the air seemed sweeter. The ocean had given freely what could never have been taken by force. In her quiet appreciation, Eloise discovered what Tommy learned in his garden, that beauty flows naturally to those who stop trying to seize it. These stories whisper an ageless truth. Harmony with life grows in silence, not in force. When you cease the endless pushing, the perpetual striving, you may find that what you seek has been waiting quietly for your stillness. Practice. Find a place where water flows, a stream, a faucet, or even rain falling outside your window. Sit quietly and observe its natural movement. As you watch, repeat softly to yourself, "I do not need to push anything forward. Life flows." Let the water's rhythm remind you that all of life moves in its own perfect time, requiring nothing from you but presence and trust. Chapter 3. The Weight of Wanting. In the bustling markets of an ancient city, Douglas counted his coins each morning and night, forever measuring his worth against what he lacked. Though his coffers grew steadily, a gnawing emptiness expanded with them. Each golden piece he acquired only heightened his awareness of all he did not possess. His hands grew calloused from clutching, his shoulders bent from carrying the weight of perpetual want. The more Douglas accumulated, the more life seemed to mock him with visions of greater fortunes just beyond his reach. He saw abundance everywhere except in his own experience. The truth escaped him. His endless craving had become a wall between himself and the very prosperity he sought. When you chase wealth as Douglas did, you transform abundance into scarcity. Your desire becomes a lens that magnifies lack, casting shadows over the riches already present in your life. The universe responds not to your wanting, but to your being. It mirrors back the state of your inner world. In a distant village lived Rosalie, who owned nothing but a single silver coin. One morning, seeing a child eyeing sweet bread in the market, she placed her coin in the baker's hand and requested 2 loaves, one for the child, one for the baker himself. As she turned to leave, her heart so light it could float, the baker called her back. He pressed a warm loaf into her hands, saying her generosity had reminded him of life's true wealth. Walking home, Rosalie laughed with pure joy, feeling richer than any queen. That evening, opportunities began flowing to her as naturally as a stream finding its path. Her open-handed spirit had activated the ancient law. Abundance flows not to those who grasp, but to those who release. In Rosalie's actions lies a timeless truth. True wealth begins when you stop seeing it as something to acquire and recognize it as something you already embody. The universe's abundance cannot enter a closed fist. Only with open hands can you receive its gifts. As your day draws to a close, settle into stillness. Let your breath become soft and natural. 3 times, with quiet certainty, speak these words: I already am what I've been searching for. Feel each word resonate in your body, allowing this truth to sink into your bones. Let your cells absorb this knowledge until it becomes not just a thought, but your living reality. Chapter 4: The Mirror of Resistance. A woman named Mildred arose each morning to wage war against herself. She crafted elaborate systems of self-improvement, believing that through sheer force of will she could vanquish her perceived inadequacies. Her shelves groaned under the weight of self-help books, her calendar burst with spiritual workshops, and her mind churned with endless affirmations. Yet the more fiercely she battled her imperfections, the more deeply they seemed to entrench themselves within her being. The truth whispers to us through the ages: what you resist persists. In fighting against your perceived flaws, you breathe life into their very existence. The act of resistance creates tension, and tension creates form. This is the subtle wisdom that transforms lives, the understanding that acceptance dissolves what force cannot conquer. Within you dwells a power greater than any discipline could summon. It is the power of allowing, of embracing the wholeness that already exists beneath the surface of your striving. When you cease the endless battle with yourself, something miraculous occurs. The very things you fought against begin to soften and dissolve of their own accord. In the mountains lived a man named Clarence, who had spent decades attempting to correct his reflection. Each morning, he would stand before his mirror, cataloging his faults and vowing to overcome them. But one dawn, exhausted by this ritual, he simply smiled at his image, not with the intention to change anything, but with the gentle acknowledgement of a friend greeting a friend. In that moment, something shifted. The burden he had carried for so long dissolved in the warmth of his own acceptance. This tale speaks to the heart of transformation. What Clarence discovered was not a technique or a practice, but a profound truth. The moment you cease trying to fix yourself is the moment real change becomes possible. His smile was not a tool for improvement, but a recognition of the inherent worthiness that had always been there. The ancient practice passed down through generations invites you to stand before your mirror, not to judge, not to improve, but to witness. Breathe deeply until your eyes soften and you begin to see beyond the surface, beyond the project you've made of yourself. Let your gaze rest there until you recognize the friend who has been waiting patiently for your acceptance. Smile gently as you would to someone you love deeply. Then walk away, carrying this lightness with you. Chapter 5. The Net That Drowns. The Fisherman. Franklin spent his days gripping his nets with white-knuckled determination. Each morning before dawn, he would push his boat into the waiting waters, his mind fixed upon a specific number of fish he must catch. The harder he tried, the more the fish seemed to slip through his fingers. His desperate pursuit cast shadows over the beauty of the sea, turning each wave into an adversary and every empty net into a personal failure. In this lies a truth as old as the tides themselves. Attachment is but drowning wrapped in the guise of dedication. When you clutch too tightly to your desires, you create resistance in the very fabric of existence. Your rigid expectations become the walls that keep abundance at bay. The universe operates through an ancient principle. It fills empty spaces, not clenched fists. When you release your iron grip on specific outcomes, you open yourself to possibilities beyond your limited imagination. This is not surrender, but expansion. Not giving up, but growing beyond the boundaries of your own expectations. On the same shore lived Clara, a potter who worked with clay. Unlike Franklin, she approached each day with open palms. She would sit at her wheel, allowing her creations to emerge naturally, embracing the unexpected turns of the clay beneath her fingers. When a vessel took an unplanned shape, she welcomed it. When a glaze produced surprising colors, she celebrated them. As Clara loosened her hold on predetermined outcomes, something remarkable occurred. Her workshop began filling with orders from far and wide. Collectors sought her unique pieces, drawn to the organic beauty that emerged from her willingness to let go. The very success that eluded Franklin's grasp flowed naturally to Clara, carried on the currents of her openness. This wisdom echoes through the ages. True abundance cannot be trapped or forced. It must be allowed to flow freely. When you release your rigid plans and expectations, you create space for life to unfold in ways far grander than your mind could conceive. The ancient practice for embracing this truth is simple, yet powerful. Each morning, as the sun paints the sky with new possibilities, whisper these words, "Let me leave space for life to surprise me." Then, identify one plan you've been forcing and consciously release it to the winds of uncertainty. Watch as the universe responds to your willingness to receive in unexpected ways. Chapter 6. The Horizon That Moves Away. In the heart of a bustling city lived Dorothy, whose days stretched into endless pursuits of recognition. Each morning she would rise before dawn, calculating the steps needed to reach the next milestone. Her calendar overflowed with appointments, her mind churned with strategies, and her spirit grew weary from the constant chase. Recognition, like a mirage in the desert, seemed to shimmer just ahead. The more accolades she gathered, the emptier they felt. Each achievement whispered of a greater one yet to come, and Dorothy found herself trapped in an endless cycle of reaching. The awards that lined her walls cast shadows rather than light, and the praise that once nourished her soul now left her hungry. The universe speaks through paradox, and here lies a truth as old as time itself. That which you pursue will forever stay just beyond your grasp. When you chase fulfillment, you declare to the universe that you are unfulfilled, and so it must be. Your pursuit becomes a statement of lack, and lack becomes your companion. In a quiet village, far from Dorothy's urban wilderness, lived Harry, a man who had never known fame nor sought it. Each morning he would sit in his garden, face turned toward the rising sun. He made no plans for greatness, harbored no schemes for recognition. Instead, he simply allowed the warmth to wash over him, breathing in the moment as it was. And in this simple act of being, Harry discovered what Dorothy's pursuit had hidden from her, the profound joy of existing without agenda. As he sat, happiness found him like a butterfly landing on an outstretched palm. The universe, seeing no resistance, no desperate reaching, filled his quiet moments with a peace that no achievement could match. This truth echoes across centuries. Fulfillment arrives not through pursuit, but through presence. When you cease the endless chase, when you allow yourself to rest in the moment's embrace, you create space for joy to find you. The universe responds not to your striving, but to your being. Through Harry's contentment, we glimpse the wisdom that Dorothy's story reveals. Recognition, like happiness itself, comes not to those who chase it, but to those who have learned to sit quietly in their own presence. The ancient practice that accompanies this teaching invites you to ground yourself in present joy rather than future promises. Write a short gratitude letter for a joy you already hold, and reread it when ambition clouds your peace. In this simple act, you declare to the universe that you are already complete, already worthy, already blessed. And in that declaration, you open the door for more to flow naturally into your life. Chapter 7. The Paradox of Strength. In the mountain village of stone and spirit, Harold stood as unmovable as the peaks themselves. Each dawn found him lifting weights heavier than yesterday's doubts, building a fortress of muscle around his heart. His shoulders grew broad enough to carry the world's expectations, his arms strong enough to wrestle with fate itself. Strength means never yielding, he would declare to those who watched him train until his knuckles bled and his joints creaked. He fashioned himself into living granite, proud that nothing could move him, that no force could make him bend. Then came the great storm. While others took shelter, Harold stood in defiance against the tempest. The winds that could uproot ancient trees surely could not best a man who had made himself mighty. Yet nature cares little for human pride. In his rigid resistance, Harold was struck down, his unyielding form shattered by forces that demanded flexibility. In the valley below lived Lilith, who understood a different kind of strength. Her garden flourished because she knew the wisdom of the reeds. When storms approached, she did not fight them. Instead, she would watch her bamboo grove dance with the wind, bending low but never breaking, rising again when the tempest passed. True power, she would say, flows like water around obstacles rather than trying to shatter them. While others fortified their walls, Lilith cultivated adaptability. She learned from the willow trees that bow to greet the wind, from streams that reshape their course rather than wage war with boulders. The same storm that felled Harold swept through Lilith's valley. Yet where rigidity had failed, flexibility prevailed. Her bamboo swayed, her willows danced, and when morning came, they stood tall again, stronger for having yielded. This ancient wisdom echoes through the ages. What bends endures, what resists breaks. Your greatest power lies not in becoming immovable, but in mastering the art of graceful movement. Like water, you can be both soft and irresistible. Like the reed, you can be both yielding and unbreakable. Nature herself teaches this truth. Mountains may seem eternal, but it is water that shapes them, wearing away stone not through force, but through persistent fluidity. The oak that refuses to bend may snap in the storm, while the supple sapling survives to grow stronger. Practice. Place your palms upward on your knees today. Whisper, being soft is being strong. Chapter 8. The Song Heard in Silence. In a quaint village among rolling hills lived Edith, a young woman who yearned to sing with the beauty of angels. Each morning, she would stand before her mirror, forcing her voice to reach impossible heights, straining until veins protruded from her neck. She measured each note, criticized every breath, and pushed herself to perfect every melody that passed her lips. The harder Edith tried, the more her voice seemed to resist. Her songs became mechanical, lifeless echoes of what she hoped to achieve. The very act of singing, once her greatest joy, transformed into a battle between will and nature. Her throat tightened, her shoulders tensed, and the music that emerged felt hollow, like an empty vessel trying desperately to contain the ocean. When you chase perfection with force, you create resistance that blocks the very essence you seek to capture. The universe operates not through strain, but through allowance. Just as water flows most purely when unobstructed, your natural gifts emerge most beautifully when granted freedom to express themselves. In the same village lived Ferdinand, an elderly gardener who spent his evenings among his flowers. He never sought to make music. He simply sat in stillness, allowing the whispers of the wind, the rustle of leaves, and the gentle hum of insects to wash over him. In his quiet presence, nature offered its symphony freely. One evening, without thinking, Ferdinand began to hum. The melody arose spontaneously, matching the rhythm of the garden. His voice, neither trained nor forced, carried the authentic resonance of someone who had learned to listen before speaking, to receive before giving. The birds joined his song, and the wind seemed to adjust its whistle to harmonize with his humble tune. This simple truth reveals itself. Authentic expression flows not from strain, but from surrender. The sweetest songs emerge not from the throat that forces, but from the heart that opens. When you release the need to control the music, you become an instrument through which the universe plays its eternal symphony. Like water finding its natural course, your unique voice awaits only your permission to flow. The strain of effort creates barriers that dam the river of your natural expression. In letting go, you allow yourself to become a clear channel through which life's music naturally flows. The practice of this wisdom requires only your willingness to be still. Sit in complete silence for 5 minutes and hear the unforced music of your life. Let the symphony of existence play through you, requiring nothing, forcing nothing, simply listening to the melody that has always been there, waiting for your attention. Chapter 9. The Market of More. In a bustling marketplace stood Gerald, his arms laden with purchases, his eyes darting from stall to stall, searching for the next treasure to acquire. Each morning he would rise early, counting his possessions before venturing out to add more to his growing collection. His home had become a maze of objects, rare spices from distant lands, intricate tapestries, gleaming jewelry, and countless trinkets that caught his eye. Yet with each new acquisition, a curious thing occurred. Rather than feeling more complete, Gerald felt a gnawing emptiness grow within his chest. The more his shelves filled, the more his spirit seemed to hollow. He surrounded himself with beauty but could not feel its presence. He owned precious things but could not taste their worth. The law of abundance works in mysterious ways, flowing not toward those who grasp, but those who release. When you clutch at life too tightly, its sweetness slips through your fingers like water. The very act of desperate accumulation creates the scarcity you fear. In a humble dwelling on the edge of town lived Daphne. Her home contained little more than a wooden table, some well-worn cushions, and a kettle for tea. Yet her door stayed open to neighbors, and laughter often spilled from her windows. She shared what she had freely, a cup of tea, a listening ear, a moment of connection. One evening, as the sun painted the sky in gentle hues, Daphne hosted an impromptu gathering. Neighbors brought what they could, some bread, fresh fruit, stories, and songs. As they sat together, sharing their simple feast, something magical happened. The space between them filled with an abundance no coin could purchase. Their hearts opened to a wealth that required no storage. From that night forward, Daphne never knew hunger, not for food, not for connection, not for meaning. She had discovered the secret that eluded Gerald. True abundance flows not from what you possess, but from what you're willing to share. The universe responds not to desperate accumulation, but to the grace of open hands. You see, what appears as lack often masks a deeper truth. The endless pursuit of more creates the very emptiness it seeks to fill. When you release the need to gather, to hoard, to protect against imagined scarcity, you open yourself to the natural flow of abundance that surrounds you always. At day's end, choose one possession to put away, just to enjoy less and feel more whole. Chapter 10. The Road That Loops Back. In ancient times, there lived a woman named Vera who yearned to understand life's deepest mysteries. She journeyed tirelessly from temple to temple, crossing vast deserts and scaling towering mountains. Each morning found her rising before dawn, packing her worn leather satchel, and setting forth toward another distant horizon. Her feet grew calloused, her face weathered by sun and wind, as she sought enlightenment from every sage and scholar she could find. Yet with each new teaching acquired, each secret supposedly unveiled, Vera felt no closer to truth than when she began. The wisdom she gathered sat heavy in her mind like undigested food, bringing neither nourishment nor peace. Her quest became a fever, driving her endlessly forward while leaving her spiritually famished. The more desperately she searched, the more elusive understanding became. In this ceaseless motion, she had forgotten how to be still. In her relentless pursuit of enlightenment, she had lost the ability to simply be present. The backwards law revealed itself through her exhaustion. The harder she chased wisdom, the further it seemed to retreat. In a distant village lived Calvin, an elderly man who spent his days sitting quietly on his wooden porch. Unlike Vera, he had never ventured far from home. Each morning, he would settle into his chair and observe the world around him with gentle attention. He noticed how shadows stretched and shortened across his garden, how birds wove melodies through the air, how the breeze carried the scent of distant rain. Through this simple practice of presence, Calvin discovered what Vera could not find in all her travels. He understood that wisdom does not hide in far-off places. It reveals itself naturally when we stop searching so frantically. In his stillness, he found that truth flows freely through an uncluttered mind, like wind through open windows. The universe operates according to this subtle principle. Seeking creates separation. When you chase after wisdom, you unknowingly push it away. But when you grow still, when you release the need to grasp and acquire, understanding gently unfolds within you. Just as a clear pool naturally reflects the sky, a quiet mind effortlessly mirrors truth. You need not exhaust yourself searching. The wisdom you seek is not waiting in some distant place or future moment. It lives in the space between your thoughts, in the pause between your breaths. It speaks in the language of presence, teaching through the subtle sensations of simply being alive. Practice. Pause outside today to feel the air move over your skin. Recognize you've already arrived. Part 2. The Power of Allowing. Chapter 11. The Ladder That Breaks. In a gleaming city of glass towers, Beatrice lived by a single belief: success meant ascending. Each morning, she would wake before sunrise, don her pristine suit-like armor, and march into battle with spreadsheets and strategies. Her office grew higher with each promotion, from the 3rd floor to the 30th, then the 50th. The air grew thinner, but she convinced herself this meant she was closer to her dreams. Yet something peculiar happened as she climbed. The higher she rose, the more unstable her foundation became. Her health wavered, relationships crumbled, and sleep abandoned her. Still, she pushed upward, believing happiness awaited at the next level. The backwards law worked silently beneath her striving. The more desperately she climbed toward fulfillment, the more hollow she felt inside. Then came the day her ladder shattered. Exhaustion claimed its due. In what seemed like failure, she found herself back on solid ground. And there, lying on the earth in her crumpled suit, Beatrice made a stunning discovery. The ground held everything she had been searching for. In surrendering to gravity, she found what no elevation could provide: true support, genuine rest, and crystal clarity. In a quiet village far from the city's towers lived Everett, a potter who worked with clay pulled from the earth. He spent his days close to the ground, hands immersed in soil and water, creating beauty from what lay beneath his feet. While others reached skyward, he reached downward, finding joy in the simple act of remaining grounded. Everett discovered that the earth itself offered the most magnificent views, not of distant horizons, but of life's inherent wholeness. In choosing not to climb, he found himself already elevated, lifted by the simple grace of accepting where he stood. His contentment grew not from rising above, but from sinking roots deep into the present moment. The universe whispers this truth: what you seek through strain often awaits in surrender. The ground beneath your feet holds more wisdom than all the heights you might scale. When you release the need to rise above your nature, you discover you've already arrived at life's summit. Practice. Lie down on the floor for 5 minutes today, allowing the earth to hold you, reminding yourself, I am already supported. Chapter 12. The Chase for Happiness. In a sun-filled apartment overlooking bustling streets, Lillian sat surrounded by self-improvement books, journals filled with happiness goals, and meditation apps promising bliss. She had created elaborate systems, scheduling joy into 15-minute increments, tracking her mood with colored charts, and setting deadlines for when she should feel complete contentment. By next month, she would declare, I'll master the art of being happy. But each target date arrived with the same hollow echo. The more she pursued happiness, the more it seemed to slip through her fingers like morning mist. Her smile grew mechanical, her laughter forced, as she checked off boxes that were meant to summon joy. The backwards law revealed itself in each frustrated sigh. The tighter she gripped her pursuit of happiness, the more unhappiness settled into her bones. Her determination to be happy became the very wall that blocked joy's natural flow. In a simple house across town lived Floyd, who had never read a book about finding happiness. Each morning, he would pause to watch his coffee steam rise in elegant spirals. Walking to work, he noticed how sunlight painted shadows on brick walls. During lunch, he savored the way his sandwich tasted, not rushing to the next moment or wishing for better things. Floyd had stumbled upon an ancient truth. Happiness isn't summoned. It simply appears when we stop demanding its presence. He found delight in unexpected places, a neighbor's wave, the sound of rain on windows, the warmth of afternoon sun on his face. Without seeking it, joy seemed to find him, settling softly on his shoulders like a contented cat. These different paths reveal the heart of the backwards law. Happiness exists not in the chase, but in the embrace of what already is. When you stop treating joy as a destination to reach, you discover it has been traveling beside you all along. The universe's greatest joke is this: the moment you release your grip on happiness, it fills your open hands. Practice. Throughout the day, pause to quietly say, Happiness, I see you already here. Chapter 13. The Desert of Desperation. In the heart of an ancient desert lived a man named Clement, whose days stretched before him like endless dunes. His solitude weighed upon him like the scorching sun, and he spent his hours searching faces in the marketplace, hoping to find the one who would end his loneliness. Each night he would climb to the highest point of his village, raising his arms to the heavens, pleading for love to find him. Yet the more Clement yearned, the more the village seemed to shrink away from his desperate energy. His neighbors would turn their gaze when he approached, sensing the heaviness of his need. He filled his home with 2 chairs at every table, 2 pillows on every cushion, creating spaces for a love that refused to arrive. The universe speaks in whispers, but Clement's own cries were too loud to hear its guidance. His pursuit of love became a storm that scattered the very possibilities he sought to gather. This is the nature of desperate seeking. It creates a force that pushes away the very thing you desire. In the same village lived Agnes, who had once mirrored Clement's desperation. But one morning, she chose differently. Instead of searching the horizon for approaching love, she began tending to her own garden. She sang while cooking meals for one, danced alone under the stars, and found joy in the simple act of being. Agnes discovered that solitude need not equal loneliness. She began to notice the companionship of small moments, the morning birds that visited her window, the elderly neighbor who shared his oranges, the soft purr of her cat. She became full with her own presence. And then, as naturally as water flows downhill, love began to flow toward her. Not because she had learned some secret technique, but because she had released the very tension that blocked its arrival. People were drawn to her lightness, her contentment, her quiet joy in being exactly as she was. This truth echoes through the ages. Love comes not to those who grasp, but to those who rest in their own completeness. When you cease trying to fill an emptiness, you discover you were never empty. When you stop reaching for love, you find it has been reaching for you all along. The practice illuminates this wisdom. Close your eyes tonight and place your hand on your chest, affirming, "I am already accompanied by life itself." Before we get into the next chapter, you can download a free ebook version of this audiobook using the link in the pinned comment below this video. Chapter 14. The Cage of Control. In the heart of an ancient city, there lived a woman named Sylvia, who mapped every hour of her days with exacting precision. Her calendar burst with color-coded blocks, each minute accounted for, each task measured against her rigid standards. She believed this meticulous orchestration would shield her from life's uncertainties. Yet with each perfectly planned day, her world grew smaller, more confined. The walls of her self-made fortress rose higher as she fortified herself against surprise. She checked the weather thrice before choosing her clothes, researched restaurants for weeks before dining out, and required detailed itineraries for even the simplest outings. What began as a quest for certainty transformed into chains of her own making. Though she appeared successful to others, joy slipped through her tightly clenched fingers. The universe whispers its wisdom through unexpected moments, through the dance of uncertainty that makes life rich with possibility. This truth revealed itself through Lionel, a potter who lived on the outskirts of town. Each morning, he would wake with only one certainty, that his hands would touch clay. Beyond this, he welcomed whatever the day might bring. When rain interrupted his outdoor work, he discovered the pleasure of sculpting by candlelight. When his usual clay supplier closed unexpectedly, he experimented with local earth and created pieces of surprising beauty. His willingness to embrace the unknown transformed potential obstacles into doorways to delight. Through these stories, the ancient law becomes clear. Control is but an illusion that tightens around those who grasp it most desperately. True safety lies not in fortress walls, but in the ability to dance with uncertainty. When you release your grip on how things should be, life expands to reveal possibilities beyond your careful plans. The universe operates not through our meticulously crafted schedules, but through the perfect chaos of divine timing. Those who learn to trust this flow discover a freedom that no amount of control can provide. It is in the space between your plans that magic often blooms. Practice. Do one small thing today without planning it, whispering, "Freedom is trust." Chapter 15. The Race That Never Ends. In a bustling marketplace stood Clifford, a merchant whose eyes never ceased scanning the stalls of his fellow traders. Each morning he positioned his wares with precise calculation, determined to outshine every competitor. When others lowered their prices, he slashed his further. When they decorated their stalls with vibrant cloths, he adorned his with silk and gold. His days became an endless tournament, each sale a battle, each coin a trophy in his war for supremacy. Yet with each victory, a peculiar emptiness grew within him. The more customers he drew from other stalls, the more hollow his achievements felt. His nights grew restless, filled with strategies for tomorrow's conflicts. Even in dreams, he could not escape the ceaseless competition that had become his life. The law of attraction works not through comparison, but through alignment. When you measure yourself against others, you create resistance to your own natural flow of abundance. Your energy scatters in countless directions, leaving you depleted and disconnected from your true power. Witness now Prudence, who once sold her herbs in the same marketplace. Unlike Clifford, she chose to step away from the daily contest. Instead of watching her neighbor's success, she turned her attention inward, focusing solely on the quality of her offerings and the joy they brought to others. She stopped marking her worth against the day's earnings of others. A remarkable transformation followed. Without the burden of competition, her energy flowed freely. Her customers sensed this shift, drawn not by clever tactics, but by the authentic value she offered. Her success grew naturally, effortlessly, because she no longer pushed against the success of others. This truth echoes through the ages. What you resist persists. By competing, you affirm that resources are scarce, that success must be wrested from others. Yet the universe knows no scarcity. Like a river that flows endlessly, abundance moves naturally toward those who align with its current, rather than fight against others for their share. When you release the need to compete, you free yourself from the exhausting cycle of comparison. Your unique gifts flourish not because they surpass others, but because they express your authentic self. This is the paradox. In stepping away from competition, you step into your true power. Your practice today carries this wisdom forward. Write down these words. I do not compete with anyone. My only path is mine. Place this on your desk for the day. Let this reminder free you from the draining cycle of comparison, opening space for natural abundance to flow. Chapter 16. The Storm in the Cup. In an ancient village among rolling hills, Eloisa spent her days watching the horizon for signs of storms. Her hands trembled as she poured her morning tea, spilling drops on the worn wooden table. Each cloud passing overhead sent ripples of worry through her being. She stockpiled supplies, reinforced her windows, and lived in constant preparation for a tempest that existed only in her mind. The more Eloisa focused on potential disasters, the more her life became a storm of its own making. Her garden withered from neglect while she studied weather patterns. Her friendships faded as she refused invitations, citing ominous changes in the wind. In her desperate attempt to protect herself from imagined catastrophes, she created the very turbulence she feared, not in the sky, but in her soul. In the same village lived Percival, who understood a deeper truth. Each morning, he sat at his simple table with a cup of tea, his weathered hands wrapped around its warmth. He felt no need to peer anxiously at the horizon or interpret the meaning of distant clouds. Instead, He found his peace in the steam rising from his cup, in the gentle ritual of sipping, in the quiet presence of the moment itself. When storms did come, as they naturally would, Percival remained unshaken. His strength lay not in prediction or preparation, but in the deep well of calm he had cultivated through countless mornings of simply being present with his tea. The very act of sitting quietly had taught him that peace isn't the absence of storms, but the ability to remain centered within them. Through Percival's example, we glimpse an eternal truth. Anxiety about tomorrow creates storms today. By constantly bracing for disaster, we miss the perfect calm that exists in this moment. The future, with all its imagined catastrophes, holds no power over the peace available now. Your tea, your coffee, your water, these simple vessels hold more than mere liquid. They offer an invitation to presence, a reminder that this moment is complete exactly as it is. When you stop scanning the horizon for storms, you might notice that right here, right now, all is well. When holding a drink today, take one slow sip in silence, whispering, "Everything is calm here." Chapter 17. The Mask of Approval. In the quietude of twilight, Morton lived behind a collection of carefully crafted faces. Each morning he would select one like a garment from his wardrobe: the charismatic entertainer for social gatherings, the stoic professional for work, the agreeable companion for friends. He believed these masks would draw others near, yet with each performance, an invisible wall grew higher. The masks he wore became increasingly heavy, weighing upon his spirit like stones in a river. Though surrounded by people who praised his charm, his laughter, his wit, Morton's heart echoed with a hollowness that no applause could fill. The more he shaped himself to others' expectations, the more the authentic whispers of his soul grew faint. In this lies a profound truth. What you hide, you cannot heal. What you conceal cannot connect. The masks we wear to protect ourselves become the very barriers that prevent genuine connection from reaching us. Consider now Hortense, who one morning gazed into her mirror and made a decision that would transform her life. She had grown weary of adjusting her words, her opinions, her very essence to please others. In a moment of quiet courage, she set aside the masks she had worn for so long. At first, showing her true face to the world felt like walking naked through a crowd. Her unfiltered thoughts, her natural reactions, her honest emotions, all lay exposed. Yet something extraordinary began to unfold. As she allowed herself to be seen, truly seen, authentic connections sprouted like spring flowers after rain. Those who had known only her masks gradually met the real Hortense. Some stepped away, uncomfortable with such rawness, but others drew closer, recognizing in her courage the permission to be genuine themselves. Love found her not in spite of her authenticity, but because of it. Here lies the great paradox of human connection. In our attempts to become more lovable, we often become less real. And in becoming less real, we create the very loneliness we sought to escape. True connection cannot flow through artificial channels. It requires the vulnerability of being exactly who you are. Your authentic self is not a liability to be hidden, but a gift waiting to be shared. The very qualities you fear might push others away could be the very essence that draws the right people closer. Like Hortense discovered, when you dare to be seen in your truth, life responds with unexpected grace. For your practice today, spend 2 minutes in front of the mirror today, meeting your real gaze and softly saying, "I approve of the one I see." Chapter 18. The Fire That Burns Out. The endless pursuit of more, this consuming flame that drives so many to exhaustion, reveals itself through Eugene's tale. Each morning, he stoked the fires of his ambition until they roared, pushing himself beyond natural limits. His days blazed with ceaseless activity, his nights sparked with restless planning. Faster, higher, stronger became his mantra, yet with each achievement, the fire demanded more fuel. Like many who mistake intensity for progress, Eugene failed to notice how his inner flame began to sputter. The very drive that once illuminated his path now cast shadows under his eyes. His relationships cooled as work consumed his hours. His health flickered like a candle in wind. Still, he pressed on, believing that to slow meant to fail, to rest meant to fall behind. The universe speaks through contrast, and so we turn to Marjorie's wisdom. She understood that fire, like all elements of life, requires space to breathe. Each morning she would light a single candle, allowing its gentle radiance to remind her, sustainable light never blazes, it glows. Marjorie moved through her days with measured grace. When others rushed, she maintained her rhythm. When voices urged her to burn brighter, she trusted her own gentle luminescence. She knew that nature itself teaches this truth. The brightest flames exhaust their fuel most quickly, while the steady hearth fire warms throughout the winter. This wisdom emerges. The fire that sustains is not the bonfire of ambition, but the steady lamp of balanced living. Your energy, like a precious flame, requires careful tending. Feed it too much, and it will consume itself. Neglect it entirely, and it will fade. But nurture it with gentle attention, and it will light your way without end. In your own life, notice where you may be burning too hot. Where has intensity replaced sustainability? Where has the roar of ambition drowned out the quiet voice of wisdom? Remember, the universe does not require your exhaustion to grant you its gifts. It asks instead for your presence, your patience, your gentle persistence. Close your eyes tonight. Picture a steady candle and whisper, "My flame glows gently, forever." Chapter 19. The Smile That Appears. In the heart of a bustling city, Gertrude stood before her mirror, methodically practicing what she believed would make her more appealing. Hour after hour, she adjusted the curve of her lips, the angle of her head, the depth of her dimples, seeking that elusive, perfect expression that would win hearts and influence minds. Each morning began with this ritual, stretching her facial muscles, holding poses until they ached, studying photographs of those she deemed successful. Yet the more she rehearsed her happiness, the more artificial it became. Her calculated joy turned mechanical, a performance that left others sensing something amiss, though they couldn't quite name what. The universe whispers this truth. Authentic joy cannot be choreographed. It flows like water, natural and unbidden. When you attempt to perfect its expression, you freeze it into something rigid and lifeless. Consider Stanley, who never gave a thought to how his happiness appeared to others. While walking through the market one day, he witnessed a child chasing soap bubbles, tripping over nothing but air and laughing all the harder for it. Stanley's own laughter burst forth, uncontrolled, unfiltered, perhaps even ungraceful by society's standards. Yet those around him found themselves smiling, touched by the genuine warmth of his response. This is the paradox of joy. The more we try to perfect its appearance, the more we drain it of its essence. True happiness needs no refinement. It springs forth naturally when we release our grip on how we think we should appear. Your smile holds power not in its perfection, but in its truth. When you laugh from genuine delight, you activate an ancient magic that no amount of practice before mirrors can replicate. This authenticity creates ripples far beyond any carefully crafted expression. The law of attraction responds not to the face you show the world, but to the genuine vibration you emit. A practiced smile may fool the eye, but the universe knows the difference between performance and truth. When you allow your joy to emerge naturally, without constraint or correction, you align with the flow of life itself. Practice for today. Allow yourself one real laugh, no matter how messy or loud, as an offering to life. Chapter 20. The Treasure Underfoot. In a distant land, there lived a man named Cornelius, who believed wisdom dwelt only in faraway temples. He scaled mountains, crossed deserts, and sailed treacherous seas. With each step, he carried scrolls and books, hoping to fill them with profound teachings from enlightened masters. Yet as Cornelius wandered, wisdom seemed to drift further from his grasp. The more temples he visited, the more mysteries appeared unsolved. His shoulders grew heavy with collected manuscripts, but his heart remained light of understanding. Years passed, and still he searched, convinced the next horizon held the answer. In the same land lived a woman named Opal, who spent her evenings in her grandmother's kitchen. While others rushed to distant shores seeking knowledge, she listened to the old woman's quiet observations about life. Her grandmother spoke of how the kettle teaches patience, how bread dough shows the power of transformation, how the changing seasons whisper of life's cycles. "The steam rises," her grandmother would say, stirring soup, "just as our troubles float away when we stop clutching them." These simple words carried more truth than volumes of ancient texts. Through such moments, Opal discovered that wisdom flows naturally in the spaces we already inhabit. It speaks through everyday scenes, a bird building its nest, morning dew on grass, the rhythm of chopping vegetables. The sacred truths weren't hidden in remote caves or atop misty peaks. They breathed in the ordinary air around her. The universe does not require grand pilgrimages. Its teachings emerge in the gentle unfolding of daily life. Truth reveals itself not to those who chase it desperately, but to those who pause long enough to notice its presence in simple moments. What Cornelius sought through exhausting journeys, Opal found in quiet attention. Her grandmother's kitchen held as much wisdom as any sacred temple. The truth you seek has always been here, waiting patiently for you to notice it beneath your feet. Walk outside and look closely at the ground under your feet, whispering, "Here is where light meets me." Part 3. The Beauty of Surrender. Chapter 21. The Clock That Stands Still. Time, that invisible master that seems to rule your days, can become either a tyrant or a friend. This truth unfolds in the tale of two souls who walked different paths in their relationship with time's eternal flow. In a bustling city, Sadie lived her life in 15-minute increments. Her wrist bore the weight of a watch that commanded her attention like a stern overseer. Each morning began with a frantic dance of scheduling, her eyes darting between calendar and clock as if they held the keys to her existence. She scheduled her breaths, timed her steps, and measured her life in rigid blocks of productivity. Yet the more precisely she tracked time, the more it seemed to slip through her fingers like water. Lunch breaks became exercises in anxiety as she watched seconds disappear. Even moments of potential joy transformed into calculations. How many minutes remained for relaxation? How long until the next commitment? In her desperate attempt to master time, she became its servant. The universal law whispers this truth: that which you grip too tightly begins to suffocate. Time, like air, must flow freely to sustain life. When you attempt to contain it, to control its passage, you only succeed in containing yourself. In the same city lived Milton, who one day noticed how his constant time-watching had stripped the color from his world. In a moment of insight, he removed his watch, turned his clocks to the wall, and chose to live by the natural rhythms of day and night. At first, this shift terrified him. Without the familiar structure of measured minutes, he felt adrift. But gradually, something remarkable emerged. In releasing his hold on time, he discovered time itself expanded. His morning coffee became an exploration rather than a timed ritual. Conversations flowed naturally, unbounded by artificial constraints. Even his work found a more organic rhythm, guided by the natural ebb and flow of energy, rather than rigid schedules. The universe teaches this paradox. When you stop measuring time, you begin truly living in it. Like a river that cannot be caught in your hands, time flows most freely when you cease trying to grasp it. Your life expands into the space created by this surrender. In releasing the need to control time, you align with time's true nature, an eternal present moment that contains all possibilities. The past exists only in memory, the future in imagination, but your power lies in the unmeasured now. Place the clock aside for an hour and just live. Remind yourself, I am timeless when present. Chapter 22. The Garden That Grows Wild. In the eternal dance between control and surrender, your greatest teacher lies in nature's wild wisdom. This truth blossoms in the tale of two gardens, each reflecting its tender's relationship with life itself. Pearl spent her days with measuring tape and pruning shears, convinced that beauty required strict geometry. Her garden stood as a testament to human will. Roses lined up like soldiers, daisies spaced with mathematical precision, each leaf trimmed to mirror its neighbor. When winds scattered seeds beyond their designated spots or rain caused unexpected growth, she would rush to correct nature's perceived mistakes. Yet despite her meticulous care, something vital seemed missing from her garden. The flowers, though perfectly placed, appeared somehow diminished, as if their very essence had been trimmed away along with their wild edges. In her pursuit of perfection, she had inadvertently stripped away the very spirit that makes a garden breathe with life. The universe speaks through such moments, revealing how control often dims the very brilliance we seek to enhance. When you impose rigid order on life's natural flow, you may create structure, but you lose the spark of divine spontaneity. Alton approached his garden with different eyes. Rather than imposing his vision, he became a witness to nature's own artistry. He planted with care, but allowed the wind to carry seeds where they wished to go. When unexpected flowers appeared between his planned plantings, he welcomed them as gifts from the universe. His garden became a symphony of surprises: morning glories climbing up cornstalks, wildflowers dancing between vegetable rows, bees creating paths he never could have designed. Each day brought new discoveries as nature painted outside the lines he'd drawn, creating beauty beyond his imagination. In this lies a profound truth. True beauty emerges not from rigid control, but from the courage to let life express itself freely. Just as a garden finds its highest expression when allowed to partially wild itself, your life opens to greater possibilities when you loosen your grip on how things should be. The universe operates through organic patterns far more sophisticated than human planning. When you trust this natural intelligence, when you allow space for the unexpected to flourish, you open yourself to magnificence beyond your own design. Today, loosen something in your routine and allow life's wildflowers to appear. Chapter 23. The Bridge That Appeared. In ancient times there lived a merchant named Otis, who spent his days searching for the perfect way to cross a mighty river that separated him from the golden city of success. He studied maps, consulted builders, and invested his fortune in elaborate bridge designs. Each morning, he would wake before dawn, gathering materials and testing new methods to span the waters. Yet with every attempt, the river seemed to grow wider, deeper, and more treacherous. The harder Otis worked, the more obstacles appeared. When he tried building with stone, storms would wash away his foundation. When he attempted wooden bridges, the rapids would snap his strongest beams. His hands grew calloused, his back bent with toil, and still the opposite shore remained as distant as ever. Here lies a truth as old as the waters themselves. That which you chase with desperation often retreats further from your grasp. The universe responds not to force, but to faith, not to anxiety, but to acceptance. In the same village lived a woman named Maisie, who each morning would walk to the riverbank and simply sit. She brought no tools, made no plans, crafted no strategies. Instead, she watched the water flow, observed the patterns of the current, and listened to the river's song. She understood that the water held its own wisdom, far greater than any human design. As seasons passed, while Otis exhausted himself with endless building, Maisie remained in her quiet observation. Then one day, after a long drought, she noticed how the river had naturally shifted, revealing a series of stepping stones that had always lain beneath the surface. Where Otis saw only the impossibility of crossing, Maisie recognized the path that nature itself had provided. This truth echoes across the ages. When we cease our frantic efforts to force outcomes, solutions often reveal themselves with elegant simplicity. The bridge you seek may already exist, hidden beneath the waters of your striving. Your task is not to build what isn't needed, but to wait until the waters part to show what has always been there. Sacred practice. Sit still for 5 minutes, asking nothing, and trust. The bridge will come when the river is ready. Chapter 24. The Lantern That Burns Within. In the quiet valleys between ancient mountains, there lived a woman named Edda, who spent her days seeking validation from every passing stranger. She hung mirrors in her home not to see herself, but to catch reflections of approval in others' eyes. Each morning she would venture into the village square, performing acts of kindness not from the heart but from hunger for recognition, for confirmation that she mattered in the vast tapestry of existence. "Tell me I am worthy," she would whisper to the wind, her voice carrying notes of desperation. "Show me a sign that I am on the right path." Yet with each compliment received, with each nod of appreciation, the darkness within her grew deeper, more consuming. The more she begged for light from others, the more shadows seemed to gather at her feet. In the same village dwelled Vernon, a simple potter who spent his days crafting vessels from clay. Unlike Edda, he worked in solitude, his hands moving with quiet certainty. When others praised his work, he smiled gently, but did not clutch at their words. When criticism came, he listened with the same peaceful attention. One day, as Edda passed Vernon's workshop, she noticed something extraordinary. Though the day was growing dim, a warm glow seemed to emanate from within his simple dwelling. "What lamp do you use?" she asked, peering through his window. "Where did you find such brilliant light?" Vernon looked up from his wheel, his eyes twinkling. "I use no lamp," he said softly. "The light you see comes from within." In that moment, Edda understood. All her life she had been like a lantern searching for flame, not realizing she carried the fire inside her all along. Her endless quest for external validation had only served to dim her inner radiance. The truth that Vernon embodied was simple, yet profound. No amount of outside illumination can match the light that naturally glows within each soul. His contentment came not from gathering brightness from others, but from allowing his inner flame to shine unhindered by doubt or desperation. This ancient wisdom whispers still, "The world cannot grant what already resides within you." Every search for external validation is a forgetting of your innate radiance. The light you seek through others' eyes has always burned within your own heart, waiting only for you to notice its steady flame. Whisper before sleep. "The light I seek shines inside me." When you whisper before sleep, "The light I seek shines inside me," you guide your mind into rest with the remembrance that nothing essential is missing. The longing for clarity, love, or peace often sends us searching outward, yet this phrase turns the gaze inward, where the quiet flame has always burned. As night gathers, the affirmation becomes a lantern within, steadying you as you cross into dreams. This practice softens the day's noise and draws you back to the truth of your own inner radiance. Even in darkness, your being carries its own illumination, like an ember that never extinguishes. To acknowledge it before sleep is to choose trust over fear, wholeness over lack. In that gentle recognition, the body relaxes and the heart eases open to receive rest more deeply. Carrying this whisper into sleep is like planting a seed in fertile soil. As you drift, the seed grows quietly in your subconscious, strengthening the knowing that your light is already here. When morning arrives, you may find yourself meeting the world differently, not as one who searches desperately, but as one who shines from within. Chapter 25. The Rope of Expectations. In the quiet corners of an ancient village, Clarice wove her days into intricate patterns of pleasing others. Each morning, she gathered expectations like heavy stones in her basket. Her mother's wish for her to marry well, her father's dream of her managing the family business, her friends' hopes that she would always be available at a moment's notice. The weight grew until her shoulders bent and her spirit dimmed beneath the burden. From sunrise to sunset, she rushed between tasks, attempting to fulfill every request, meet every standard, and satisfy every desire others placed upon her. Yet with each obligation met, 3 more appeared in its place. Her smile became fixed, her laughter hollow, and her dreams grew distant, buried beneath mountains of should and must. The truth of existence whispers that we are born free, yet how often we fashion our own chains from the golden thread of others' wishes. Each time you bend to lift another's expectation, you add another link to the chain that binds you. The universe does not demand such sacrifice. It is we who volunteer for this servitude. Look now at Felix, who one day noticed how the rope of obligations had worn grooves into his palms. In a moment of quiet wisdom, he understood that most of these duties were not his to carry. They were wishes cast upon him by others, dreams that belonged to different hearts, paths that led away from his own. With gentle determination, he began to set down each rope, one by one. First, he released the expectation to always be available. Then, he surrendered the need to solve everyone's problems. Finally, he let go of the burning desire to prove his worth through endless doing. As each rope fell away, something extraordinary happened. His step lightened, his breath deepened, and his eyes began to sparkle with renewed life. The world did not collapse when he said no. The sun continued to rise when he chose his own path. Instead of chaos, he found clarity. Instead of rejection, he discovered respect, first from himself, then from others who witnessed his quiet transformation. This teaches us the most essential truth about obligations. Many of the burdens we carry were never meant for our shoulders. The universe designed you for freedom, not for bearing the weight of every expectation that crosses your path. True strength lies not in how much you can carry, but in knowing what to set down. When you release what isn't yours to hold, you create space for what truly belongs in your life. Your energy, once spent meeting countless demands, returns to nourish your own garden of possibilities. This is not selfishness. It is sacred self-respect, a recognition of your right to breathe freely in this vast world. Release one unnecessary obligation today and breathe. I am free to live my own way. This act of release is both gentle and powerful. It is not rebellion for its own sake, but a conscious honoring of your own path. When you loosen your grip on what drains or diminishes you, you reclaim energy for what feels authentic and alive. In this way, freedom is not escape, but return, a return to living from your own center rather than from demands imposed by others or by old habits. Breathing this affirmation seals the practice into your body. With every inhale, you gather the courage to be true to yourself. With every exhale, you let go of what no longer aligns. Over time, such small releases accumulate into a life lived in harmony with your inner compass. And in that harmony, freedom is not something you chase. It is the air you naturally breathe. Chapter 26. The Key Already in Hand. In the heart of a bustling marketplace, Virgil moved from stall to stall, examining every trinket and talisman, convinced that somewhere among the glittering wares lay the key to his destiny. His eyes darted frantically, scanning shelves laden with ancient scrolls, mysterious potions, and weathered maps. Each vendor promised their wares would unlock the gates of fortune, yet with every purchase, Virgil's heart grew heavier. Night after night he pored over sacred texts and whispered incantations, believing the next ritual or the next prayer would finally reveal the path forward. His home became a maze of artifacts and promises, each one acquired in the desperate hope it would unveil life's mysteries. Yet the more he accumulated, the more trapped he felt in the labyrinth of seeking. The universe speaks in whispers of truth. What you search for has never been separate from you. The key to your destiny isn't hidden in distant temples or sold in marketplace stalls. It rests in the quiet recognition of what already exists within. Hattie walked through the same marketplace, her mind wandering to ordinary thoughts. As she reached for a piece of fruit, her hand brushed against something in her pocket. There, worn smooth by years of carrying, lay a simple key. In that casual moment of contact, understanding bloomed. She had always possessed what she needed. The key wasn't magical or elaborate. It was the simple truth of her own being. This reveals the great mystery. The treasures we chase are often already in our possession, waiting only for our recognition. Like searching frantically for spectacles perched atop your head, or hunting for a lamp while holding a torch, the seeking itself blinds you to what's already there. The universe has withheld nothing from you. Each breath carries the wisdom you seek. Each heartbeat holds the rhythm of your purpose. When you cease the endless search outside yourself, you discover that what you thought was locked away has been within your grasp all along. Imagine yourself holding a shining key while whispering, "I already have what I'm seeking." The key is not something to be earned or found elsewhere. It rests already in your hand, radiant and ready. This image reminds you that the treasures you seek, peace, love, clarity, belonging, are not locked away in some distant place. They live within you, quietly waiting to be acknowledged. The shining key is your awareness, the simple yet powerful recognition that what feels missing is, in truth, already here. By claiming it, you stop chasing and begin dwelling in the abundance you hold. Each time you return to this visualization, you strengthen the truth that fulfillment is not postponed. The whisper, the key, the glow, all of them are invitations to remember your own wholeness. And as you carry this awareness into your day, you may notice life reflecting it back to you. Doors open with ease, burdens lighten, and what you once sought reveals itself as always having been yours. Chapter 27. The Wind That Guides. In the gentle hours before dawn, Elsie gripped her oars with fierce determination. Her knuckles whitened as she pulled against the mighty current, muscles straining, sweat beading on her brow. Each stroke meant to prove her strength, yet the shoreline remained unmoved. Hour after hour she rowed, fighting the water's natural flow until exhaustion settled deep in her bones. The river seemed to mock her efforts, its ancient wisdom unchanged by her resistance. The universe speaks through water, teaching us that force creates only the illusion of progress. When you wrestle against life's natural current, you expend precious energy while remaining spiritually stationary. Like Elsie, many souls exhaust themselves trying to command the flow of existence, forgetting that the river knows the way. Jasper understood this truth. As his boat drifted on the same waters, he laid his oars across his lap and lifted his face to the sky. The wind, no longer fought against, became his ally. The current, once his opponent, transformed into his guide. His surrender opened a gateway to effortless movement, carrying him precisely where he needed to go. This teaching reveals the essential paradox of spiritual navigation. Progress comes not through struggle, but through alignment. When you release the oars of control, the universe's current carries you with perfect wisdom. Your surrender becomes your strength. Your trust becomes your transport. The river flows whether you fight it or not. Its purpose is not to obstruct, but to carry, not to challenge, but to support. Like the water that knows its path to the sea, the universe holds a perfect plan for your journey. Your task is not to force the flow, but to align with it. In your own life, notice where you row against the current. Where do you exhaust yourself fighting what wishes to carry you? What dreams do you strain toward that might arrive more easily through trust? Remember Jasper's wisdom. Sometimes the most powerful action is to put down your oars and allow life to reveal its direction. Close your eyes in the breeze today and say softly, "I trust the wind to guide me." This practice teaches you the art of leaning into trust. The wind does not ask you to chart its path, yet it carries leaves, seeds, and even whole seasons faithfully from one place to another. In the same way, life carries you forward, even when you cannot see the road. Whispering this affirmation is a way of loosening your grip on control and remembering that you, too, are borne along by a force greater than yourself. With eyes closed, the breeze becomes a messenger, light, shifting, unpredictable, yet steady in its presence. In choosing to trust it, you open your heart to guidance that may not appear logical, but is deeply aligned. And when you rise again, you may find that a subtle clarity has entered you, not from effort, but from surrender to the wind's quiet wisdom. Chapter 28. The Echo That Fades. In the heart of ancient mountains where wisdom echoes through valleys untamed lived Marvin, a man who believed his voice must thunder to be heard. Each morning he climbed the steepest paths, stood upon craggy outcrops, and shouted his desires into the vastness. "Give me what I seek," he commanded the universe, his voice straining against the wind. Yet with each forceful cry, the mountains seemed to shrink away, returning only hollow echoes that mocked his demands. The harder Marvin shouted, the fainter his echo became, until the mountains fell silent altogether, as if turning their ancient faces from his clamor. His throat grew raw, his spirit weary, but still he persisted, believing volume equaled power. Day after day, he left the mountains emptier than when he arrived, his desires unmet, his voice unheard. In these same mountains dwelled Winnie, who understood the language of gentle resonance. She approached the peaks with reverence, speaking softly as one might address a cherished friend. Her words, though quiet, carried a clarity that seemed to dance with the mountain breeze. "Thank you," she would whisper, and the mountains would cradle her gratitude, multiplying it through the valleys like ripples on still water. When Winnie spoke, even her softest utterance returned to her with crystal clarity, as if the very stones had leaned in to listen. The mountains, rather than shrinking from her voice, seemed to bend toward her whispers, amplifying their power not through volume, but through harmony with the natural world. Here lies a truth as old as the peaks themselves. Force creates resistance, while gentleness invites resonance. The universe responds not to demands, but to alignment, not to shouts, but to symphony. When you speak with gentle clarity, your words travel further than any command ever could. Like Winnie, you need not raise your voice to be heard by the infinite. The softest truth, spoken in alignment with universal harmony, echoes more powerfully than the loudest demand. The mountains teach us that real power lies not in the strength of our shout, but in the authenticity of our whisper. Practice. Speak one kind word softly today and trust it will echo into the universe. A single kind word, spoken softly, carries more weight than it seems in the moment. When you choose to offer it, without expectation, without calculation, you release a thread of warmth into the vastness of the world. It may reach a stranger, a loved one, or even yourself, yet its echo will ripple far beyond what you can measure, for kindness never travels alone. Trusting its echo is part of the practice. You may not witness where it lands or how it blooms, but just as a seed dropped into the soil disappears before it grows, your word is already finding its way into hidden roots. The universe knows how to carry gentleness into places you could never touch by effort alone. Speaking this word also reshapes the one who speaks. In that soft offering, your voice becomes an instrument of blessing, and your own spirit tastes the sweetness it has given, whether it is a whisper to another or a phrase you murmur to yourself. Remember, one kind word can tilt the balance of a day, and perhaps even a life. Chapter 29. The Door That Opens Inward. In the heart of an ancient city stood a weathered door, its surface etched with mysterious symbols that seemed to shift in the changing light. Irene, a merchant known throughout the land for her determination, found herself before this door, believing her greatest desires lay on the other side. Day after day she threw her weight against it, muscles straining, sweat beading on her brow. The more she pushed, the more immovable the door became. The door stood as a mirror to life itself, reflecting back the very force applied against it. Irene grew weary, her shoulders aching from the constant battle. Yet still she pushed, convinced that enough force would eventually yield results. Her struggle drew crowds of onlookers, each offering advice on how to push harder, better, faster. But the door remained steadfast, unmoved by her increasing desperation. The universal law whispers this truth. What resists your force may yield to your gentleness. When you find yourself straining against life's obstacles, remember, some doors open inward, not outward. Your pushing creates the very resistance you seek to overcome. Floyd, a quiet potter who lived nearby, observed Irene's struggle with compassionate eyes. One morning, as dawn painted the sky in gentle hues, he approached the door. Without ceremony or strain, he placed his hand upon its surface and pulled gently inward. The door swung open with graceful ease, revealing a garden bathed in golden light. This truth extends beyond mere doors. It touches every aspect of existence. When relationships feel stuck, when dreams seem distant, when peace appears elusive, pause and question, am I pushing when I should be yielding? The universe responds not to force, but to alignment. The art of living lies not in muscling through obstacles, but in discovering which way life naturally flows. Sometimes the path of least resistance reveals the greatest wisdom. Your struggles may be signposts, not calling for more effort, but for a complete reversal of approach. When you find yourself exhausted from pushing against life's doors, step back. Take a breath. Consider that perhaps the answer lies not in pushing harder, but in pulling gently inward. The greatest strength often manifests as softness, and the most profound victories come not through force, but through flowing with life's natural rhythm. Practice. When a struggle resists you today, step back and whisper, "There must be a softer way." When resistance rises like a wall before you, the instinct is often to push harder, to strain against the immovable. Yet whispering, "There must be a softer way," allows a different intelligence to emerge, one that trusts in gentleness over force. By stepping back, you give life room to reveal hidden paths, solutions that cannot be seen while clenched in struggle. This phrase carries the energy of water. It does not fight the rock, but flows around it, wearing it down with time and patience. To affirm a softer way is to align with this wisdom, remembering that ease can accomplish what effort cannot. Even in hardship, softness is not weakness. It is supple strength, the capacity to bend without breaking. As you breathe these words, notice how your body unclenches, how your mind loosens its grip. Struggle may not vanish, but its edges blur, and in that softening, new possibilities glimmer. The softer way might be slower, quieter, less dramatic, yet it often leads you exactly where you are meant to go, carrying you with far greater grace. Chapter 30. The Arrival Without Traveling. In ancient times, Norma wandered from temple to temple, seeking the sacred wisdom she believed would bring her lasting peace. Through mountain passes and across vast deserts, she carried her restless heart, convinced that somewhere, anywhere but here, lay the answer to her soul's yearning. Each new destination promised enlightenment, yet delivered only temporary relief. The temples grew grander, the teachings more esoteric, but still peace eluded her grasp. With each mile traveled, her inner turbulence only intensified, like waves crashing against an endless shore. The truth reveals itself through the backwards law. The further you journey seeking peace, the more it retreats from view. Peace is not a distant shore, but the ground beneath your feet. It dwells not in exotic locations, but in the quiet acceptance of where you stand. Ralph understood this mystery without ever leaving his porch. Each morning he would sit in his wooden chair, allowing the world to unfold around him. The breeze that touched his face carried the same wisdom as mountain winds. The birds that visited his garden sang the same songs as temple bells. In his stillness, he discovered what Norma chased, that peace is not found but remembered. The universe whispers this truth. Your search ends where you are. Every sacred place you seek exists within the temple of your own being. The journey to peace requires no passport, no map, no distant horizon. It asks only that you stop, breathe, and recognize the silence that has been waiting for you all along. What Norma sought through endless movement, Ralph found through perfect stillness. His porch became his sanctuary, not because it was special, but because he allowed it to be enough. In accepting where he was, he discovered where he had always wanted to be. Let this wisdom settle into your bones. Peace is not a destination, but a recognition. It blooms not from finding the right place, but from stopping the search altogether. Like Ralph, you need only sit where you are and allow the universe to embrace you. The practice. Sit quietly where you are now and affirm, I have already arrived. To sit quietly with this affirmation is to honor the truth that your being is whole even without accomplishment, without proof, without reaching some imagined destination. Each breath you take confirms your belonging, and every heartbeat affirms that you are already woven into the fabric of existence. The simple act of sitting still becomes sacred, a doorway into recognizing that life itself has been carrying you all along. Over time, repeating this phrase reshapes the way you meet your days. Instead of living in tension between where you are and where you think you must go, you begin to rest in the luminous reality that you are here. Arriving fully in this moment allows a natural joy to emerge, not dependent on circumstance but born from presence. And in that presence, you realize the path has always been home. If you enjoyed this audiobook, I created a free ebook version for you. You can download it using the link in the pinned comment. Conclusion. In the depths of every longing lies a hidden paradox. The harder you grasp, the further what you seek drifts away. This is the wisdom of the backwards law, an eternal truth that whispers through the fabric of existence. Peace, joy, and fulfillment are not prizes waiting at the end of effort, but treasures revealed the moment you release the struggle to attain them. The universe responds not to your striving, but to your surrender. It is not your force that moves mountains, but your alignment with the quiet rhythm of life itself. When you soften the endless reaching, when you allow yourself to simply be, you discover that nothing was missing, nothing was withheld. Everything has always been here. Peace does not bloom in a distant tomorrow. It unfolds in the stillness of this very breath. Wholeness is not found beyond the horizon, but within the heart that chooses to rest, to trust, to allow. The chase dissolves into recognition. You were never separate from the life you desire. Let this truth take root within you. What you seek is already present. When the search ends, the miracle begins. This is the backwards law, the paradoxical key that unlocks the flow of the universe, guiding you into the fullness of now.
If you enjoyed this exclusive audiobook, I handpicked this next book which will change your life.